Welcome everybody back to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs YouTube channel. My name is Greg, and of course I am your host here. This channel is dedicated to news and commentary for your Washington Commanders. If you're down with that, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, and also when you do, hit that notification bell to make sure you get notified for each and every video release, not just for ones that YouTube picks, but you got to make sure that you choose for all videos. Otherwise, YouTube's going to decide to give you what they feel like you should watch. I'm telling you now, you should watch every single one of these videos. So, okay, all right. Now, enough of all that. Let's get into a controversial subject. And I don't think it's that controversial. Probably not as much as this glaring light that messes up my shots than makes my video look bad, but it's about the content, right? Anyway, should the Washington Commanders bring back the Redskins Chief logo? Now, before that you jump either here or there, as you can see behind me, you can see that I am very proud of the Redskins Chief logo. I grew up a Washington Redskins fan since 1981, which makes me 26 years old. Not just kidding. For 40 plus years, I have been watching the Redskins play. And of course, and then I watched the Washington football team play, and then the Washington Commanders. So I realized that with the name change, there was going to be a lot of controversy. Why? Well, because you're never going to make everybody happy. There's going to be some people who are going to be downright upset, and you're going to have some people who are excited, and you're going to have a lot of people who are indifferent. If I had to wager exactly a percentage of how many people would be happy, I guess that's how I'm going to phrase this. A percentage of how many people would be okay with the Washington Commanders going back to being called the Washington Redskins, you would probably get an overwhelming 80%. Honestly, you would. You would get an overwhelming 80% of fans being happy with that. Why do I say that? Because there are a lot of fans out there who are like, they'll always be Redskins to me, or there's some who are like, I will never buy any Commander stuff. It's always going to be Redskins no matter what. I may still watch them play, but I hate calling them the Commanders. I hate their uniforms, all this stuff. You also have a large, I think this is the majority of fans. You have a majority of fans who are like, I probably still call them Redskins. I may call them Commanders. I may even buy new jerseys and stuff. I don't care as long as they win the Super Bowl. I think that's how a lot of us are. That's a lot of the camp. That's the biggest camp that I think a lot of fans are in, is I don't care what they're called as long as they win. And, that being said, if they went back to Redskins, I would be extremely happy. If they stick with the Commanders, whatever. Would I rather them change their name to something else if they could not go back to Redskins? Yes. A lot of people don't like the Commanders name. They think it's generic. They think it's too Walmart. I tend to agree with that. I've never been a fan when it was a big um, it was a big letdown when they released the name as being the Washington Commanders. I was like, no. Now, that's not saying that I was 100% in the Red Wolves camp. I know there was a lot of reasons why that wouldn't have worked, but that sounded cooler than Commanders. Red Tails, I was always like, doesn't really have much to do with area. Actually, Red Wolves had more to do with the area than Red Tails, Red Hogs. A lot of people like these names because they have the term red in it, and then people were like, let's just do hogs. People really got creative with the Native American names. They wanted to name it after specific tribes. I think in the end, you really couldn't make everybody happy, but I think honestly, there was a large majority of the Native Americans who were highly upset that they even went from Native American imagery. You had a very loud group of, and I'm not trying to get political here, okay, but just the case is just really true. You had a very loud group of white liberals, black liberals, and probably some Native Americans that were totally against the name Redskins for various reasons. Some went as far as to say it's equivalent to the N word. A lot of Native Americans, I heard more from Native Americans say that was baloney than ones that were saying, yeah, that's true. And then a lot of the people who were really backing that narrative were not even Native Americans. A lot of them were white. And I'm like, why do you feel like that you should be speaking for a group of individuals? What don't you think that Native Americans deserve to have their voice either way? And the only voices that seemed to be heard was the ones against, but there was so many. There was such a large majority of the ones who either didn't care or were for keeping the name that they were drowned out because they were not loud enough. People kept ignoring them because it was around the George Floyd era, and it was around the era of we need to cancel anything and everything that might be just a tad bit offensive, um, unless it's Christianity, and then we can bag on them as much as possible. Again, should not be getting political or religious on this. I'm sorry if I am. I am just kind of telling you like I see it, and I'm stay with me. I'm getting to the point. The point is that I would almost bet you my life savings, which is not much, but I would almost bet you my life savings that um, a large majority of Washington fans, of Native Americans, whoever, would be just fine if the Redskins came back. Guarantee it. But because of that, the Commanders right now might be profitable because they're winning, then that is more of a reason to not do it. And I do understand, they're trying to build something new with the marketing, and I guess it's working. So as long as it's working, you're not going to see a change. It doesn't make sense. Even with a new stadium on the horizon in a few years, unless a lot of pressure comes, and there could be a lot of pressure to come within the next 5 years to say, hey, we don't like Commanders. If we're going to have a team that we're proud of that wins Super Bowls, we want to have a name that we're proud of as well. And that could very well happen. I don't ever put any of that to rest. I know there's a lot of people who are like, give it a rest. It's never going to happen. Um, guess what? There were people who said the same thing about the name is never going to change, and it did. So there's always going to be a possibility. A lot of people hate the name. But besides that, getting back to really the meat and potatoes, I don't see the name going back to Redskins at all. Let me just put that out there. I never see it going back. I would love for it to. Trust me, I would love for it to go back to Redskins, but it's not. So, and I'm willing to go along with the whole. Okay, if it's offensive, whatever. I've always maintained, and I've said this I don't know how many times. I've always maintained the idea that let the Native Americans decide for themselves. I have no Native American blood in me, so I have no dog in the fight. And any of you guys out there, I don't care what race you are, unless you're Native American, unless you've got more than 50% Native American blood in your system, you have no dog in the fight. You have no say so in this whatsoever. So I've always maintained allow the Native Americans to decide either way. And if the majority of them, and here's the other thing that got me when I said this before, if the majority of Native Americans say it's offensive, then yes, change it. But if the majority say, no, we never found it offensive, doesn't make any sense, or they want it change it back. And I remember, someone making the comment of like, oh, so it's all about majority. Like, it doesn't matter that a few people are offended. I'm like, well, guess what? If you didn't go with a majority on things, then you would never elect government officials, presidents. You would never have business practices passed, because you would always be trying to include, you would always be trying to make everybody happy, and that's impossible. You're never going to do that. That is why we have majority rule, right? And so I have maintained that idea. And if you feel like that's wrong, it's fine. It's that's your prerogative. But I'm always going to maintain that majority rules, and majority should decide one way or the other. Getting back to the point, would it be okay? Should the Washington Commanders bring back the Redskins Chief logo on their helmets? I would like to see them bring them back for throwbacks. I think at this point, there is no reason whatsoever why the Washington Commanders cannot bring back the logo for throwbacks. There's no reason whatsoever. I think we've established the point. I mean, they've already made it to where it's okay to have the logo shown on the Sean Taylor merchandise that they had released. Hopefully they go back and correct what they did with Darryl Green, which I think is a travesty. But I see nothing wrong with that. You can still call them Commanders, but I think it would really unite a lot of the ones who were so highly upset to see the logo and the name retired. I think that's the least that you can do. Have about 2 or 3. Honestly, I'm going to pee off some fans on this who love the black uniforms. I hate them. I know that they might look iconic because of that Bears game last year. Still, I don't like them. I don't think that they resemble my team whatsoever. They look more like the Steelers. I would replace those with the Redskins throwbacks. I would do that. in a heartbeat. Let the team have Redskins throwback uniforms 2 or 3 times a year. I think that would be a good compromise for the camp that totally hates anything Commanders. At least they're able to see a team that they recognize and reminisce on a few times a year. And then, you know, you can be done with it at that point. I'm fine with moving on with just Commanders as long as we do have throwbacks. Nothing wrong with honoring that Chief logo. Chief logo is not racist. Anybody who tells you that that Chief logo is racist don't know the history and just go along with whatever they've been. They are so gullible. You could tell them that the sky is green and they'll believe you. How can a Native American symbol be racist when it was created by a Native American artist for somebody? It was a self-portrait, well, not a self-portrait, but it was a portrait of a family member who was a chief of his tribe, of his family, and you're going to say, well, that's racist. So if I drew a logo of my dad, would that be racist? No. So why would this be racist? Doesn't make any sense. It's a stupid argument, and I will die on that hill. So there's no reason why we can't bring back at least the Chief logo. Doesn't, hey, I mean, if they found a way to bring it back full time without having to bring back the Redskins name, maybe call them Warriors, I'm 100% on board with that. I don't see that happening. But again, bring them back as throwbacks. I will take that. I'll take any of that. But I'm telling you, man, I'll be rocking the old logos for eternity, for until the day that the Lord calls me home. I'm rocking this, man. I'll rock the Commander stuff too. It's fine. I've got the hat. I don't have any of the jerseys just yet. I want some jerseys. But I'll be just fine rocking the Redskin stuff. I have no problems with that. I was a little apprehensive, I'll admit, a couple of years ago, especially at the height of civil unrest, because I really felt that I would be a target. People would really call me racist and all that crap. And I had more people of all colors would look at me if I'm wearing like a Redskins jersey or Redskins hat, and they're like, I still call them Redskins. And they were so happy to see it. They loved it. And so yeah, man, I am rocking the tradition. I'll rock with the new stuff as well. I just want them to be called Super Bowl champions. And I think we'll see that probably within the next year or two. Who knows? Maybe this year. But I know I've had commentaries on this in the past, but this always seems to come up every single off season. It always has to be addressed. You know why? It's not because people are ignorant. It's because it means something to somebody. And any folks out there who say this is such a stupid argument, they need to just bury it. Well, bury it if you can. But anything that's happened so far has not made a dent into burying it. The best thing to do, I think, honestly, at this point, is to look at what other people are saying and say, you know what? It is good to move on. I do. I'm trying not to make this video too long, but I'll end it with this and say, I do understand what Josh Harris is doing, and I think he's doing the right thing. I really do, regardless of what I think about the name. But he can do more to continue, and I think he's slowly doing it. I think he's just very methodical because he this stuff you do have to kind of tiptoe through. I think he is willing to continue to bring more of the tradition back. I know that we heard about he's wanting to bring back the uniforms from the glory days. Haven't seen that. I don't think that's going to happen this year. But he wants to do that. Maybe that's something that does happen when they get into the new stadium. Um, I think there's been a lot of people who said they don't necessarily love the new, the new uniforms, especially the white uniforms. Never seem to really look more like the Cardinals than anything else. Um, so I'll just leave it at that for now. I'm sure that we'll talk about this again, but um, summarize, if you want to know my stance on this, they went back to Redskins, I'd be happy. If they don't, whatever, I'm willing to move on. Do I like the Commanders' name? Not necessarily, but um, would I like to call the Commanders Super Bowl champions? Heck yeah, I would. Of course I would. Um, you know, ultimately, I would like to see that uniform, that logo, make it out onto the field a couple of times a year. I think that'd be a good compromise. I'd be okay with that. Let me know in the comments what you think about it as well. Would you, at least, at the very least, would you like to see that Indian Chief command right there on the helmet, the old throwback uniforms? Would you like to see that make its way as throwbacks 2-3 times a year each season? Let me know in the comments. With that said, thank you for joining us. I will see you in the next one.